Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 6th edition of Planeyo Book Circle. Planeyo Book Circle is the gathering of book and art lovers in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. We meet every first Saturday of the month here at Planeyo Publishers, number 3 Acre Street, off Ekbene Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, Nigeria. And we also meet online, live on Facebook, on my profile, Ayo Eaton. I'm glad that you have joined us today. Today it will be mostly a lesson on creative writing because two of our guests will not be able to make it to the program. We are talking about Professor Roman Uzabo and Victoria Lawrence. We'll check if we can reach Mrs. Kaito Moore to speak to us on our book, Those Teenage Years. As it stands, we cannot play our theme song because of our Facebook monetization rules. We would not want our videos to be struck by the algorithm. And so it will be mostly me talking to you about creative writing and the creative writing process today, among other topics. So let us discuss creative writing and the creative writing process. I remember in one of our previous editions, I attempted a discussion on creative writing and its process. I would like to continue. If you have a passion for creative writing, then you should pay attention to what I have to say today. In the first place, you need to know that creative writing is an imaginative writing. It's a kind of writing that springs from the imagination. It is an inventive form of writing, and we call it fiction because the events that it depicts are not true in the historical sense, but rather they are possible in terms of realism, or in the sense of realism. And so, as a creative writer, you need to be able to invent occurrences and make us believe that those occurrences are possible. And how do you do that? In order to do that, you need to make your mind clash with other creative works. You need to sharpen your sense of imagination, your ability to imagine, and that can be done by conscious thinking, developing your mind through education and through studies, as well as practice. Because the more inventive writing you practice, the better you become at it. When you have an idea to write, which normally comes in the form of inspiration, you need to write down the idea in a notebook, and you do that so that you will remember the idea. Ideas do come in a flash, and if they are not recorded, if they are not written down, they are not noted down, then you can forget them. But if you are able to write your ideas down, you'll be able to develop them, even if that will be done later in the day, in the month, in the year, or in the years. But if you do not write the idea down, it's very likely that you are going to forget. Now, in order to be very good at writing, you need to read. If you do not read, you cannot write. And so as a good creative writer is a good reader, a great creative writer is a great reader. So whatever you want to make out of your creative writing enterprise, you need to first of all capture that in your level of reading. That is very important. You need to take lessons in creative writing like what we are doing now. You need to have coaches, someone teach you creative writing, and when that happens, you get better. And then you need to practice the language or the medium of writing. Choose your medium of writing and make sure you master that language. If you are going to write in English, if you want to write in English, you need to master the English language. If you want to write in Ibibio, you need to master the Ibibio language. There, you also need lessons in practice in order to get better. Remember, in the business of creative writing, you can never know all. And that's why you need to humble yourself and place yourself at the level of studentship. When you place yourself at the level of studentship, you're able to keep learning and keep improving yourself. That is how it works. And then you need to actually write. To write and complete your work at the time you set for yourself, you need discipline. You cannot be a creative writer without being disciplined. You have to set goals and devote time to achieve the goal. You need to be able to sit down and focus on the writing. If you do not do that, you cannot sit down and concentrate on your writing, then you are not going to succeed as a creative writer. It's very important. And you need to master literary language and tropes. You need to master literary language and tropes. We will discuss the aspects of literary language and literary figures today. But first of all, I want to take you through the topic that shows the relationship between the creative writer and the creator of the universe. In 2020, I wrote an article on that topic and I titled it The Godhood of the Creative Writer. Okay, so I would like to take you through that lesson so that you know how powerful creative writers are and why we do liken creative writers to God. Alright, as blasphemous as it may seem, creative writers are co-creators with God. Right? Because both the creative writer and God operates or creates through the medium of the word. So, is the creative writer a God? That's how that essay begins. It's on my blog, ayoitem.com. That's the first sentence. Is the creative writer a God? You might think this question surprising. The reason is that we have been taught that God is not man and that no man can be compared to God. Indeed, God is omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient. No man on earth is imbued with those qualities. Thus, it can be considered blasphemous for anyone to think of assigning godhood to mere mortals who are themselves limited beings, limited in time and space. But then you have to admit that man was created in the image of God, and because of that, man, has retained some of God's creative attributes. When you look at any human being in this world, I want you to see them as creative forces. That's why you must never underrate any person, because no matter what you think of them, there's something innate in them that they can do very well, better than you. So you need to respect every human being, because each of us carries that creative spark directly from the Creator. It's divine. Ye are gods, the Bible declares in Psalm 82 verse 6. And in Psalm 8 verse 5, the Bible states that man was made a little lower than the angels and crowned with glory and honor. So you could see how close man is to God. And so there's no need for us to run away from the Godhood that we are as divine beings. Even though we are in flesh, we are quite divine, we are close to God, we have God's creative spark, and you could see the wonderful things that man has done, and you could see that creativity. Except that sometimes that creativity can be used for the wrong reasons, but when you check very well, you see that the Godhood is there in man, given all the wonderful things that man has done, right from Adam till today, right from the time of Adam till today. When you take a look at the creative human spirit and its transformative power, you will begin to appreciate the truth in the Bible verses that have just been quoted. Right from the beginning, man has always been a co-creator with God. For instance, Adam was given the authority to rename God's creation. It should be noted that naming is an act of creating itself. Naming is a performative act which assigns ontological identity to beings in spiritual, existential, and dramatic terms. Right from the time of Adam, man has always been recreating the world. This means that God's creation only happened once, but man has always been recreating the earth in many ways since then. Sometimes positively, sometimes negatively, sadly, depending on the nature of the creative force in man. We are all witnesses to the epic work of recreation that man has carried out in God's world as a co-creator. There are aeroplanes in the atmosphere, beating time and traversing space. There are spaceships that explore the deep secrets of the universe millions of light years away. An object like the Mars rover, Curiosity, has not ceased to amaze me. Though most scientists deny the existence of God, an act that I find paradoxical and ironic, the achievements exemplify God's creative ingenuity in them. No wonder a writer once said that the scientists themselves were busy discovering God. This is because the success of their experiments keep pointing them to the existence of a higher reality and a higher force, even when they would not admit these forces to be spiritual, but rather explain them away in equations and scientific terms. That is whenever they can. With the creative writer, the dynamics of Godhood alters considerably. God and the creative writer work with words. God spoke the universe and all that is in it into existence. The creative writer also uses words to create the world that we encounter in the literary work. The average reader knows that when she begins reading, she enters into another world, which is the one that is created by the creative writer. This world is also peopled by characters that the creative writer has created. These characters are seen to be real, just like those that the reader meets daily outside the literary work. I always say that in the world of creative writing, the writer is God. He is the creator of that world. That when you pick up a book and you begin to read, the world that is created in that book is created by the author, and the author is the God of that work, God of that world. So he is the creator of that world. He designs the characters and speaks or writes them into existence. He controls the destiny of each character. He makes some of them successful and makes others to be failures. He makes some of them to live, makes others to die. The God of the creative work also rewards and punishes the characters depending on their actions. He also decides who lives and who dies. He decides how each character will end up, and he also decides how the story will end. So you can see how powerful the creative writer is. So next time you meet a creative writer, I suggest you bow in humble worship. So that is the idea. So I hope that you can better appreciate why we see the creative writer as God, because both God and the creative writer work with words, and they use words to create and recreate the world. One, the real world; the other, the literary world that we meet in the work of art. So it is that important that we realize that now, given the power that the creative writer has, what are those things that the creative writer is capable of achieving in the world, in the real world? Because from what I'm saying, it appears as if the power of the creative writer only ends in the literary work, where he controls the destiny of characters and the whole world he has created in the book. What if that power transcends the creative work and works outside the creative work in the real world? What if that happens? How wonderful would it be? But of course it does. It does. So the creative writer's power is seen in the power of literature itself. The creative writer's power is seen in the power of literature itself. Now, literature has the ability to free the captive. It has the ability to liberate the oppressed. And that is what the creative writer does. Literary works have the ability to change society for the better, sometimes for the worse, depending on the ideology they undergird the work, or the kind of author and what they write. So when you look at human history and you see the progress that has been made over time, you will definitely see the handiwork of the creative writer in those transformations of society. For instance, if we are talking about the end to slavery, how slavery ended. Slavery could not have ended without writing, without creative writing, without imaginative writing. And we cannot abhor or feel disgusted about slavery as a past event without the works that these creative writers left behind for us to read. Because when we read them, we now wonder why human beings descended to that depth in enslaving others. So that's the power of creative writing. Creative writing. It can alter the course of history. Alright, for instance, what like Aquinas travels help to end or bring an end to slavery. And you could say that when we talk about slavery today, it looks as if it never happened, because though it exists in different subtle forms, the way it was practiced then, using human beings as goods in exchange for money, it looks so disgusting today. It's quite disgusting today when we look at it. But why that is so is because a group of visionary writers used that pen to fight against slavery and to make us see how inhumane it is. We to talk about racism, the fact that one race looks at themselves as being higher than another race. That also was put paid to by creative writers. Creative writers have been involved in all the major battles of history, including racism, where someone says, oh, because I have a different pigmentation, skin pigmentation from you, then I'm superior to you. And so the person will look down on you because you have a different skin pigmentation. Now, racism was rife in America. Of course, it still exists there today in different subtle forms. But it also took writers, creative writers, to imagine a world that would be free from slavery. It also took creative writers to condemn creative slavery in their works in order for the American society to move away from slavery and racism. So that is how powerful creative writing is. It can transform society. So if you are listening to me and you are a creative writer and you feel powerless, you must understand how powerful you are when you pick up that pen and you begin to address salient issues in your society in your creative writing. The course of human history has always been transformed, changed, because of the power of the pen and the power of creative writing. So if you are listening to me, you can look at your society and see what you feel is not right, which is your vision, which will give you the vision of what society you want to have, what society you would like to have. But when you look at the society and you feel that certain things are not right, you can always imagine a better one, a better society from the one you are currently seeing. And that will form your vision as a creative writer. Vision is that which looks beyond contemporary problems to the future solution. And you begin to write based on that vision. For instance, if you look at a society that is full of poverty, you can begin to imagine a society where people are free from poverty. If you live in a society where people don't have light, electricity, you can begin to imagine a society where people have constant electricity. And that will be your vision for a better society. And with your writing and consistency, with time, your society can be transformed to how you envisioned it, or to the one that you envisioned. And that is the power of creative writing. So, creative writing space is a power space. The creative writing space is a power space. That is why we have all forms of contestations in this space. People trying to project certain type of writing, promote them, because they have an agenda that they want to fulfill. Because whether you believe it or not, the easiest way to change people, the most effective way to change people or to get a message across to people is through the story. You can preach all that you would like to preach, sermonize all that you would like to sermonize. People will not listen to you. But if you tell a story, if you can tell a story, the message in the story will break all barriers and get into the person. Because everybody loves stories. Everybody loves stories. So in every story, behind every story, inside every story is an ideology. And that ideology is very important because it is that which is going to change society. That is the power in the story. The ideology in the story is the power in the story. And that's why I keep saying that the creative writing space is full of contestations, because so many people have ideologies that they want to project, and so they can spend a lot of money to promote a certain type of writing. And when you go to the market to buy books, you see those books. And sometimes you don't have any, you cannot do anything except to buy them and read, because no other book is available. But what if you as a writer can decide that, I'm going to promote this kind of ideology in my book? And you set out to write it. Because the powerful people of this world know exactly what they're doing. When they promote certain movies, promote certain books, put a lot of money into it, make sure those movies and books flood the market, right? So, do not think that you are simply telling a story as a creative writer. Think of it in terms of power struggle. Because nothing really happens in this world without an ideology. Nothing happens in the world without an ideology. Even when you look at the wars being fought between Iran and Israel today, and the US today, what motivates the war is the ideology behind it. And only very few people will know about the ideology. They simply say, Israel is attacking Iran because Iran has nuclear weapons. That might not be the truth. That's just probably what they tell you. The true ideology behind the war, they will never tell you. But it takes a discerning writer, a discerning critic to know exactly what is going on. So if you know what is going on, if you know the ideology that is playing out in the war between, or in the war among US, Israel, and Iran, let me know in the comment section. Is Israel attacking Iran because Iran is a threat to them, or there's something more to it? So let us know. That's the idea. Creative writing can liberate people, can change the world, can make the world a better place. It can change people's mindset. That's why we normally judge people's humanity and education by the number of books that they have read, especially creative fictional works. Because literature has a way of making us more humane, making us more considerate towards other human beings. Literature, creative writing makes us more humane. It humanizes us. It makes us less selfish, less self-preserving. Another level of power that creative writing has is in the healing aspect of creative writing. You need to know that creative writing can heal. And we look at that healing in the form of therapy. Creative writing is therapeutic. It does not only heal the author, sometimes authors heal through writing. It can also heal the reader, the person that comes in contact with the writing. Because see, there's nothing personal about writing. If there's anything personal about writing, it ends when the work is published. Once the work is released to the public, there's nothing personal about it anymore. Everybody relates to the story. Everybody comes to the story from different perspectives and goes away with different experiences. The story speaks to everyone in different ways, depending on how they encounter the story. So that's how it works. So, creative writing can be a form of free association, whereby the author finds relief for the burden in his mind. And you know that when something weighs down in your mind, it can be disastrous until you are able to find someone to talk to. But some people don't have any reasonable person to talk to except to write it out. That's why some people keep journals. So the creative writing process can be a source of release for the soul of the creative writer. Because then the person is letting out what has burdened his heart. And after that, he is free. So it's a form of free association, it's a healing process. It's also a process of letting go. Healing from wounds, and so even those who come to read the work can also heal from it. So creative writing is therapeutic. It has the ability to heal. It has the ability to heal. So that's how powerful creative writing can be. Now, one thing you need to pay attention to as a creative writer, is your language. I've already said that you cannot succeed as a creative writer if you cannot master the language or the medium of expression. You need to be very good at the language you're using to write, so that you can express the idiom of the language, express yourself effectively with the language, using proverbs, using idioms, thematic expressions, slangs, special meanings, and so on and so forth. Now, the language is the way that we interpret the story. So that's why it's important for you to master the language of expression. You're writing in English, and you need to have a certain level of mastery of English that allows you to write effectively. That is why we recommend that creative writers should be studious, because the language itself is vast, and so it requires constant learning. So you write with a particular language you master that particular language. You must master the language. In all the genres of literature, that is poetry, drama, or prose, or non-fiction, or technical writing, you need to master the language. So that's why as a creative writer, you need to have your dictionary, your thesaurus, your glossary of literary terms. You need to have all of them. Because you see, this language exists at different levels. For instance, you need to master the words. That's the vocabulary. And you need to use the right words and the right structures. And in mastering the words, there are many levels. For instance, we can talk about denotative meaning. We can talk about connotative meaning. We can talk about idiomatic expressions, proverbs, and so on and so forth. Special meaning. We can talk about antonymy, synonymy, slangs. All these are understood at the level of vocabulary. The level of vocabulary. You need to master the language. In a deep way that allows you to express yourself without any problem. Okay, so let us talk about each of those levels. At least let us talk about mastering the words in the language denotatively. So sometimes a writer might use words denotatively. We call this denotation or denotative meaning. Denotative meaning is the dictionary meaning of a word. Denotative meaning is the dictionary meaning of a word. It is the everyday meaning of the word. It is the disambiguated meaning of the word. It is a decontextualized meaning of a word. So most times, whenever you see a word, especially in isolation, the meaning that comes to you is the denotative meaning. I like to use the word I, E-Y-E, as an example. Merely you hear the word I, what comes to your mind is the organ of sight. That is the denotative meaning of the word I. Okay? That's the usual meaning of the word, the everyday meaning of the word, the dictionary meaning of the word. Alright? The decontextualized meaning of the word is the disambiguated meaning of the word. I, E-Y-E. Now, we also have the connotative meaning. The connotative meaning is the extended meaning of a word. It is the contextualized meaning of a word. What that means is that we take the meaning out of its usual context in order for us to understand it. For instance, if someone says, Peter's eyes are aching, the eye in that statement is organ of sight, which makes it denotative meaning. But if we say Peter is the eye of the family, the I in that sentence is no longer used in the ordinary everyday meaning. The meaning is extended. Alright? But the extension is from the ordinary everyday meaning. But now it's extended to mean something else in another context. So that's the connotative meaning. meaning in context. Peter is the I of the family. Not necessarily the I we know again, but we can use the sense of I that we know already to now understand this new context. Meaning that Peter looks after the family. Peter is the one that looks after the family. So that's it. Peter looks after the family. That's I, E-Y-E, but in two different sentences. One, it functions as denotative meaning. In the second, it functions as connotative meaning. So as a creative writer, you need to know how to use words denotatively and connotatively. Now, for the creative writer, especially poets, connotative meaning is very important, because connotative meaning beautifies the language. Once you move into the realm of connotative meaning, you are in the realm of poetry, in the realm of literature, because you are already in the realm of tropes and figures, figurative expressions. So you should know that Peter is the I of the family, entails metaphor, because Peter is being compared to an I. It entails synecdoche, part-whole relationship, and so on and so forth. So the realm of the creative meaning is the realm of literature, literary language. And all creative writers must master connotative meaning, because that's the language of poetry, that's the language of literature. So, if you understand this, then we can look at some of the figures of speech that we have that you can use while writing. We want to look at some of the literary terms that you can use in your poetry. As a writer. So on my blog, I have a selection of these literary terms. I titled them Notes on Selected Literary Terms. Notes on Selected Literary Terms. I'm trying to prompt you to write using creative language, which is a very beautiful language, flowery language that springs from the imagination. And we are going to see how beautiful each of these tropes is, beginning with metaphor. So the metaphor compares two things without using like or as. Metaphor compares two things without using like or as. For instance, if you say Peter was a lion in the fight. Peter was a lion in the fight. In that sentence, Peter is being compared to a lion. Perhaps the person is looking at Peter's bravery, courage, or power during the fight, and does not just want to say, oh, Peter was very strong in the fight. Peter was very strong during the fight. He wants to use a term that captures your imagination. And so the person says Peter was a lion in the fight. That's a metaphor. That language makes you imagine. makes you think, makes you see mental pictures. Apart from metaphor, we have simile, another form of comparison that uses as or like. In that case, you can say Peter was like a lion during the fight, or he fought like a lion. That's simile. Still, Peter is being compared to a lion. Only that this time we have like in the expression. So it makes us see one person or one thing in terms of another or something else. And that fires the imagination in our understanding of what is being communicated. And that is how powerful literary language is. Another aspect of literary language that I want to talk about, another example, is personification. I want to talk about those frequently used ones, so that you see when you want to communicate like a writer, as a writer, when you want to write creative writing, this is the type of language you want to use. Creative language. Creative writing needs creative language. Creative writing requires creative language. So personification is a figure of speech in which inanimate things are given human attributes. When you give human attributes, when you ascribe human attributes to inanimate things, then that is personification. For instance, the trees danced in the wind. The trees danced in the wind. So, dancing is a human attribute, now being ascribed to trees. That is literary language. That's how we speak in poetry, that's how we speak in literature. If you're going to be a creative writer, you need to speak like that, you need to write like that. So imagine, once you hear that sentence, your imagination will run. And you begin to imagine how a tree is dancing. So, creative writing plays with your imagination through the instrumentality of language. And so you have to be mindful of your language when you are in the realm of creative writing. You can say, when I entered the room, the dark bottle called out to me. When I entered the room, the dark bottle called out to me. That's a powerful literary language. It's almost unforgettable. That's personification. And I have a list of all of them, most of them, on my blog. Just Google notes on selected literary terms, and then you can look through them. But that's how literary language works. It fires your imagination. It makes you see with your mind's eye. Makes you see with your mind's eye. And when you begin to see with your mind's eye, you are in the realm of imagery. You begin to see with your mind's eyes, you are in the realm of what? Imagery. So we are going to spend some time to talk about imagery as an aspect of creative writing language. An aspect of language in creative writing. Poets, novelists, playwrights write using imagery. They want to impress the reader with unforgettable language. And a language is unforgettable when it has imagery in it. A language is unforgettable when it has imagery in it. So, what is imagery? Imagery refers to the mental pictures one encounters while reading a work of art. These mental pictures occur in the mind's eye. It shows that one is blessed with imagination. when you read a book, when you read a novel, a poem, and you begin to see what you're reading in the form of pictures in your mind's eyes. Your mind has eyes. Your mind has eyes. You begin to see these mental pictures in your mind's eyes, then you are imaginative. It shows that you're imaginative. In fact, it simply means you're intelligent. Intelligence is the ability to link two domains of imagery together to form meaning. That's why when we ask people a question in class and they say, "Sir, I don't have an idea," no idea, that means they cannot link what you have said to any imagery, to any image. They cannot link what you have said to any image. It's like if I say computer, for you to understand what that word computer means, that an image has to come to your mind. And that's how you understand what I'm saying. If no image comes, then that's when people say no idea. They don't know. So it's as simple as that. And so what the creative writer does is to ensure that you have the image for every sentence that he or she makes. And so when you are reading the work of art, you see these pictures passing through your mind. It registers the story in your mind. That's why we say that stories break defenses. But the type of story that breaks defenses is the story that is imbued with imagery, with dramatic, creative language, full of imagery that will break anybody's defenses, so that whether you like it or not, you remember the story. That's how writers write. And that's why the language of literature is very powerful. It's in a class of its own. And I've just given you a direction to it by telling you about metaphor, simile, personification, and of course there are others. That's how it works. The writer uses words to appeal to our senses. I suppose we have up to 5 senses. Recently, in some quarters, we are told we have more than that. But let's work with the 5 senses. Like the sense of touch, or the sense of sight, right? Taste, hearing. We also have emotions, feelings. We have the sense of smell. Writers write to appeal to all the senses. Remember that the basic tool of the writer, the basic tool of the creative writer is the word. The creative writer has nothing else, does not really have anything else to use in writing except the word. And in the beginning was the word, and the word was with God. That's how powerful the word is. The word is very powerful. And so you should not joke with writers, because they command words just like God commands words. So in John 1 verse 1 down, you see the power of the word. And that's how powerful the creative writer and God are. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. So you can see that word is very powerful tool for the creative writer to use to transform the world. In the beginning was the word, and the word was with God, and the word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by him, and without him was not anything made that was made. So the word is a living thing. The word is very powerful. We can use the word to change and transform our world. Change and transform our existence. If you read down, it says, "In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shined in darkness, and the darkness comprehended not." So words are very powerful, and we should learn how to speak carefully. So the creative writer, as I said, makes use of words to appeal to our senses. The creative writer appeals to our senses. And depending on which sense that the creative writer wants to appeal to, we have different types of imagery, which you as a creative writer must know as you write. For instance, we have the visual imagery. Visual has to do with sight. Visual imagery has to do with sight. So here, the creative writer uses words to appeal to our sense of sight. So there are specific words that are sight words. That means when we encounter these words, they make us see. That's why we call them visual imagery. Take a word like mountain. Take a word like cat, C-A-T. Take a word like water. These are all words that make you see. Take a word like stream. Take a word like black. All these are words that appeal to the sense of sight. And they constitute visual imagery in the text that they occur in. So if the writer wants you to laugh, the writer does that through the instrumentality of the word. Putting the right words together will make you laugh. The writer wants you to cry. The same way we use a set of words to make you cry, to create imagery that will make you cry. The writer wants you to feel sad, the same thing. We'll just put words together that will change your mood to sadness. That's how writers operate with words. With the right imagery. That's how they work. So when you come across these visual words, you know that the writer wants you to see. So do you know of other visual words? You can drop them in the comment section. I mentioned cat, I mentioned black, I mentioned mountain, I mentioned stream. Okay? So that's for visual imagery. We also have tactile imagery. Tactile. T-A-C-T-I-L-E. Tactile imagery. This appeals to the sense of touch. So, tactile imagery appeals to the sense of touch. Touch. Right? And the words that conjure up touch include smooth, rough, velvet or velvety, cold, so these are the words that appeal to the sense of touch. So if you come across these words in a work of art, you know that what the author wants to do is for you to feel. Alright? Words like hot, cold, rough. And then you have auditory imagery. Auditory imagery. Auditory imagery. It appeals to the sense of hearing. Auditory imagery appeals to the sense of hearing. And of course, the writer uses words to appeal to our sense of hearing. When the writer uses auditory words, he wants you to hear. Words like jingle, words like ring, words like shout, murmur, words like clink, words like splash. He wants us to hear. Words like screech, words like hiss, hiss, the hissing of a snake. So those are sound words the writer wants you to hear. So you note that. And of course we have olfactory imagery. Olfactory imagery, sense of smell, appeals to the sense of smell. Words that appeal to the sense of smell are scents, aroma, perfume, odor. Incense, and so on and so forth. Petri or putrid. And then you have gustatory imagery. Gustatory imagery, G-U-S-T-A-T-O-R-Y. Gustatory imagery. This one appeals to the sense of taste, the tongue. Like bitter, was like bitter, sweet, sour, and so on and so forth. And then we have kinetic imagery. Kinetic imagery, K-I-N-E-T-I-C. Kinetic imagery. This has to do with movement, words of movement. Words of movement. Words of motion, like fly, run, okay? Words like spin, and so on and so forth. Then finally we have organic imagery. Organic imagery. This has to do with internal sensation, like hunger, love, fear, hatred. And so when you put all of this together, you see that the writer has the ability to command your attention while writing, depending on which aspects of these images he would explore or exploit even in the writing. And that's why when you pick up a work of art, you are just engrossed in the story. You know, the writer is able to capture your imagination as you read the work, making you see pictures in your mind's eye, making you feel, making you taste, making you smell, making you sense the movement and all of that. Only just with words the writer is able to command these domains of action. That's what you need to understand. So I'm done with imagery, and I would like to take a break. When I'm back, I will take a review of A Guide to Mom's those teenage years in preparation of what she will be saying when she comes on the program.
Are you looking for a place to have your quality printing done in Uyo? Look no further than Planeyo Publishers for your quality direct imaging printing. Our services include graphic design, photocopy, color photocopy, typing and printing, lamination, flex and poster, book publishing, wedding and burial programs, ID card printing, passport printing, photo enlargement. You can also make your gifts more valuable when you brand them. Let's brand your gift items and souvenirs. Visit Planeyo Publishers at number 2 Eka Street off Ikodekpene Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call 0802-7898-705, 002-789-8705. Planeyo Publishers, publishing the dream works.
Are you looking for a place to have your quality printing done in Uyo? Look no further than Planeyo Publishers for your quality direct imaging printing. Our services include graphic design, photocopy, color photocopy, typing and printing, lamination, flex and poster, book publishing, wedding and burial programs, ID card printing, passport printing, photo enlargement. You can also make your gifts more valuable when you brand them. Let's brand your gift items and souvenirs. Visit Planeyo Publishers at number 2 Eka Street off Ikorekpene Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call 0802-7898-705, 002-789-8705. Planeyo Publishers, publishing your dream works.
Okay, so welcome back. Now I want to read a review of the title Most Those Teenage Years in anticipation of joining us on the program to discuss the text. You can see that those teenage years are on display on the shelf alongside other books. So let us have a review of the book. This review is on my personal blog, ayoitem.com. A review of the title Most Those Teenage Years. Title: Those Teenage Years. Author: Kaitu Mo. Place and town of publication: not stated. Publishers: Springford Integrated Services Limited. Year of publication: 2020. ISBN 978-978-5675719. Pagination: preliminary pages 28, main pages 206, total pages 224. Price not stated. Reviewer: Ayo Item. Theme quote: Let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believer, in word, in conversation, in chastity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. 1 Timothy 4 verse 12. Introduction. The Guide to Most Those Teenage Years can be read at once as an epistolary, didactic, bildungsroman, and children's fiction told from a parent's agential perspective and aimed at addressing those issues that confront young people as they navigate their journey from childhood to adulthood. Being an epistolary novel means that it is written in the form of a letter, just like Mariam Abbas' So Long a Letter. However, while Ramatulaye's In So Long a Letter addresses a letter to a friend, Aishatu, Editi in Those Teenage Years addresses a letter to a daughter, Priscilla. As a didactic work, Most Those Teenage Years contains invaluable life lessons for children and youths, meant to help them avoid life-altering mistakes that could ruin their future. As a bildungsroman, the novel depicts the psychological as well as physical journey children undertake, including all the lessons they learn as they grow from childhood to adulthood. It is important that the authorial voice in the novel is that of a mother who writes down her experiences as a student so that the daughter, the novel's addressee, could learn from her experiences. Those Teenage Years qualifies as children's literature, mostly because it addresses chiefly children's issues, portraying the experiences of children in educational spaces as they prepare themselves for life in the real world. Despite being addressed to children, Those Teenage Years can be read by all members of society who desire to know the issues that confront young people and how to resolve them in order to make the world a better place. At a time in our evolution as a society when young people need guidance in navigating the complex paths of life and growth, this book should be in every hand and on every shelf in every home. Synopsis. Editi Akande and Fatima Katagu, formerly schoolmates in secondary school, meet at the executive Airport Lounge of Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport. The meeting triggers the recollection of childhood memories and experiences of 35 years ago in school as they wait for their departure calls to fly to Dubai. Once on the plane, Edith has an idea to pen down her experiences during her school days for her daughter Priscilla to learn from. This is how the entire novel is written. It is a documentation of Edith Akande's school days, a relationship with other students, junior and senior, the teachers, and the individual mannerisms, their mistakes and challenges, the cultural and existential shifts that have occurred over time, among other issues. The narrator takes the reader through her experiences in secondary school, through to the university, raising salient issues like peer pressure, career choices, sexual immorality, cleanliness, or personal and collective hygiene, classism among students, patriarchal dominance and feminization, parental control and discipline, youthful exuberance and missed opportunities, gender violence and sexual abuse, and science versus superstition, among others. Though Edith is the narrator, the story centers mostly around the experiences of other students as she witnessed them in school. The narrator compares her school days to contemporary times, noting the changes in terms of technology and modes of communication and learning. For instance, instead of using cell phones to communicate, Edith writes about posts and telecommunications, P&T, of our days, whereby you have the telephone operator, whereby you gave the telephone operator your number to dial. If the number went through, you have to speak to the person on the other end of the line while standing on that queue. The novel exposes the choices that each student makes and the consequences of those choices as the years go by, resulting in the different levels of success and quality of life for each of them. The novel comes to an end as the plane is about to touch down in Dubai. Structure and organization. The novel is organized in 33 chapters with a prologue. The prologue narrates the meeting between Edith Akande and Fatima Katagum at the airport. They are catching up through to when the Dubai-bound plane takes off, and Edith begins to write down her story for the daughter. Each chapter has a title which suggests its major theme or subject matter. For instance, chapter 22 is entitled Career Choices and Examinations, while chapter 29 is entitled Secrets and Superstitions. Subject matter of the novel. The character amongst those teenage years captures the past experiences of school children in Akwa Ibom State and Nigeria as a way of fashioning a moral compass for contemporary youths and students to draw from. It is narrated from the genital perspective of Edith Akande aboard a Dubai-bound flight and addressed to her daughter Priscilla. Plot. The novel has a non-chronological plot structure because it begins in the present, where Edith Akande meets Fatima Katagum at the airport and launches into the past through what Edith writes to her daughter Priscilla. The novel takes us through the secondary school experiences of the narrator, packed with events and moral lessons, ending with the university education and the graduation of some of the students, especially the narrator. Setting. The novel is set in post-colonial Nigeria, straddling the past, the 1960s, and the present and contemporary times. Specifically, the novel is set in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, where the narrator grew up and attended the fictional central government secondary school, Mbioku. It is a boarding school where most of the events take place through Edith's narration. The novel equally mentions important Nigerian place names like Lagos and Port Harcourt. Point of view. The story that the novel narrates is told from the first person narrative point of view. For instance, in chapter 6, which is entitled A Reader, a Leader, the author writes in the second paragraph, "The library had so many books that I often wondered if anyone could have counted them all." Of course, the narrator implied in the above quote is Priscilla's mother. Themes. Among the themes raised in Umore's those teenage years are the importance of education in the transformation of the individual and society, friendship and love, bullying in school, self-sacrifice, the transformative power of reading, trade by barter among the students in the hostel, peer pressure and its consequences, discipline as a means of personal success, class, fake life and forced identity, family values, and parental discipline. Themes in the novel are illustrated mostly through characterization. The theme of friendship, for instance, is illustrated in the characters of Okechukwu and Binta, as well as Helen and Chidinma. There is also the theme of children being forced by their parents to offer certain courses against their will. This is the case of Jackie, whose father desires him to be a medical doctor. Characterization. The novel has a wide array of characters, with most of them being minor characters. Each character is mentioned in the story in relation to an event the narrator witnessed during her youthful days. The actions of those characters, especially when weighed against their consequences, serve as a lesson to the reader. So among the characters are Editi Akande, Priscilla, Fatima Katagum, also known as Fatima Igom, the Nwekes, Uluma Nweke, we have Bella Adekunle, Kanimoita, Bodelawa, Ifeoma Eze, among other characters in the work. Language and style. The novel is written in post-colonial English, complete with tropes that make for a literary masterpiece. In the first place, the novel is styled as a letter, a written communication between mother and daughter in the form of advisory notes for a teen who needs guidance on how to navigate life's complex paths. So I'll pause at this point and call the writer because it is time for us to discuss.
Hello, afternoon, Doc. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, ma. How are you doing today?
Afternoon. Very well. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic.
And now it's Lagos.
I'm trying to telephone. Okay. Okay.
So how is Lagos today?
Today is fine. How's it going with you?
Yeah, everything is fine. Glad to see you. So, I think we can begin. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have with me the author of Those Teenage Years, Mrs. Ekaitu Umore. She has joined us live from Lagos to discuss her life and works. And maybe first of all, Mom, let me ask you, what exactly are you doing at the moment?
Right, at the moment, I'm in Abuja at the moment.
Okay.
And yes. And earlier today, I was in a class where I taught people who plan to be leaders in the civil and the economic space in a foundation that was funded by a German NGO. It's been done. I've been on the faculty for about 9 years now. So I go to teach them leadership, strategic leadership, and financial management. And today I have a class, and it was thoroughly enjoyable class, but very reflective as well, considering that we need to have these leaders step into position for the benefit of our country and companies.
Okay, so I read somewhere where you are referred to as a queen of profitability. We know how that name came about.
Okay, yeah, the profitability point. Remember that I have worked in several corporate places where I interact with businesses, and in the process, you know how you have built your muscle for seeing the right thing to do in a business makes profitable. So I built that muscle in the interactions I've had with people. And also remember that I founded and ran a microfinance bank for 8 years. So in that process, I have seen businesses grow right before my eyes, and there were interactions I had with people when they thought their businesses were almost irredeemable. But I looked at it and we worked together and brought it back to life. So it was easy to say, oh wow, I've made a profit, oh wow, I've made a profit. I'm turning the corner. I'm not making losses, but I haven't arrived at profit yet. So it was easy for me to get the movement, the stability thing. And also the fact that the person accountant has also helped our work, because accounting, we tend to look at your balance sheet or profit and loss statement, statement of financial position, and those help you with restructure. Sometimes people don't need to start something. They just need to arrange their life and the life of the business the way it should be, so that it is efficient, it is run productively. So, and then if you remove the excesses that hold on to some cash that shouldn't be held on to, then profit is released. So sometimes you don't need extra things to become profitable. And these are the things I help some businesses do when I speak to them and look at what stuff that's to do.
Okay, so in advising businesses, what are those data or pieces of information that you look for in order to be able to give your advice?
I cannot tell you very much.
Okay, I'm asking, in advising businesses, what kind of information or data do you look for in order to be able to give them the piece of advice that you have to?
Okay, so the statutory financial statements are some of the things we look for, but not only that, we also just look at their market share, how they're doing in the market, and we also look at some of their internal reports, like their management reports. We even look at the business plan. Some businesses have fantastic business plans, but they don't follow anything that was in the business plan that got them to start the business in the first place. And some business plans are too ambitious and too unrealistic. So we look at all of those things in the process of interacting with our clients.
Okay. Tell us about your work that you've done in Akwa Ibom State for businesses, and what you think about the business climate in Akwa Ibom State at the moment.
Ibom Life.
Yes.
Okay, so this is something that touches my heart very much. Ibom Leadership and Entrepreneurial Development Center. It's the idea of the government who decided that look, many more functioning and profitable businesses so that the economy of Akwa Ibom State is different, and like Akwa Ibom State, civil service state. And so we wanted to change that from narrative. And so we thought Bomled would be a very good banner where that would happen. And that's why he set up the Bomled and invited me to be there for the time before. And what we did as the Bomled was not only just to ensure that they have access to money, but to send them in the efficient way of managing resources. Because if resources are not well managed, no matter how much of the resources we get, they will still be squandered. So we taught them the principles of business management, of bookkeeping, record keeping, marketing, all of those things, and even how to speak and be an ethical person in business, and also etiquette, how to be a person of a socially correct person, so that you have customers who come back to you, not just because you're selling, but because you make people feel good. So we've taught them all of those damn things, and in the process, quite a number of them have applied them, and some of them walk up to me and tell me what we learned at Ibomlet is what is keeping my business today, and I am very proud of this. But also the fact that after we finish the theory, which was very important, because it helped them to know what the right things were. But also the state government gave each of the people who passed through the training, successfully passed through the training, gave them grants of 500 grants. Some of them have used them so efficiently, and that makes us in Ibomlet very proud. Someone even bought land. That's the one I know of. Someone even bought land from that money, part of it, not in Rio anyway, but closer to his village, and decided to plant palm. And then some other people, different people have bought land that told me, and then I don't know what the others did in terms of land that other people did, but some of them have used the money so efficiently. And also sadly, some people squandered the money because some of them read in schemes they did not understand. They did not use the template we gave them, because we also told them, look, before you even start anything, if you haven't started, let's do a business model canvas. See what you want to do. See whether the market is there, because if the market is not there, you cannot succeed. If the market is there, and the people that will work with you to make sure that you deliver, and the pricing, what's your target market? You might think that we have 9 million people in our pricing, but is it 9 million people that are going to buy your product? No. What's your target market? What's your real market? Because you have the population doesn't mean that you have a market. They're two different things.
Yeah. So the other part of the question was the business climate in Akwa Ibom State, and what your view is about the business climate in Akwa Ibom State, and if there's anything that ought to be done to make things better in that area.
Okay, so the business climate in Akwa Ibom State, I'm going to say that it is fair, but a lot needs to be done to deepen it. And then there are sectors of the economy in Akwa Ibom State that not a lot needs to be done for it to be deepened. For instance, I still hammer on tourism, and that's something I'm very passionate about. And in fact, when I was in Rio, I got a couple of groups to come to Akwa Ibom State on holiday, and some of them came back on their own after I did the tour for them. So the business climate in Akwa Ibom State still needs deepening. I mean, some things have been done, but a lot more still can be done.
Okay, so I would like you to have a take on, being in business and being in leadership. Does someone need to be a leader in order to be in business? Does someone need to be a leader in order to be in business and succeed in business? Leadership.
Can you repeat the question?
The relationship between leadership and business, because these are the two things I find recurrent in your work. And I'm asking whether it is necessary for one to be a leader in order to succeed in business, or whether there are leadership qualities that one needs to have in order to do well in business.
Okay, if I got you well, leadership is not, when we talk about leadership, it's not just about people having a gathering of people following them, because when we talk about leadership, for instance, in Nigeria, we think about the president and the governor and maybe the local government chairman. That's not the definition. That's not the only definition of leadership. Even you as a person, you have to have personal leadership to be able to run a successful business. You have to have personal leadership. So leadership and business They're not two parallel lines. They can't be together. And in the context that leadership means being able to take disciplined, intentional, strategic action, then we need to be a leader to run a business effectively.
Wow. So, you know, for instance, you just said that you were training a set of people in business. I would like to ask you the education and mentorship that you had that helped you to get to this level where you are able to train others.
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
Yes. For instance, you just said now that you were training a group of people on business and leadership. So I would like to ask you the kind of education and mentorship that you had that helped you to get to this point where you were able to train others.
Oh, okay. Yes, first of all, I'm quite passionate about in deepening entrepreneurship and business in Nigeria because I know that if we have many more profitable businesses running in Nigeria, the unemployment amongst our youth and the devices that we see among the youth who are not employed, and so the devil has sent them to their workshops to reduce. And so because of passionate about that, we try to learn and find out what I needed to expand that space. And in the process, I have taken training. I have gone to Enterprise Development Center at Atlantic University, where I learned business leadership and management. And after doing most that, I became a member of faculty of that center, ETC, and I'm still there today. So for 15 years now, I've been on that faculty. And then I've done a program at Center Leadership and Strategic Development, where I'm also on the faculty now for about 9 years. And I've also gone to Lagos Business School, where I am now on their executive council for the Alumni Association. So those are the things I did to prepare myself. Because if you want something, you have to find out what is required, and then you make the sacrifices to get those things. And each of these trainings costs me, but the outcome is benefiting from, and the rest of the people who are interacting with me are benefiting from. And I charge a high fee for what I do for the personal clients I have.
Okay, so if you're asked to give a kind of projection about the direction that a business in Akwa Ibom State in Nigeria is going, what would you say? What are the pointers?
Did you say pointers or direction to?
Yeah, the direction that the business world in Akwa Ibom State and in Nigeria is heading, say perhaps in the next 5 to 10 years.
Okay, so Nigeria and Akwa Ibom, we are not in a vacuum, we are in the global space. And so a lot of businesses are heading in the space or in the direction where the rest of the world is heading. But I'm afraid that we are maybe not doing enough to move fast as we should, because, and sadly, the world is not going to wait for us. We have to buckle up and move in the direction that we should. But before we even begin to move in the direction where the rest of the world is going, have we sorted out the lower needs, the basic needs of housing, food, and shelter? Let's resolve those. Then basic energy, even data is also a primary. It's almost now. I think it was Microsoft who said, the founder of Microsoft, who said that now. Data is a fundamental human right. So have we sorted out those fundamental human rights before we even begin to look at where the rest of the world is going? Once we resolve those issues, then we can begin to look at the rest of the world. But sadly, at this moment, we have a lot to do. But the good thing is that these are challenges, and then it's up to us who are here in Nigeria to step up to the plate and do what is needed to move us in the direction where the rest of the world is going.
Okay, so I have this question about the business of literature, or the business of, okay, let me just say the business of books, especially in the Nigerian environment, would you advise someone, for instance, who is a writer that the person can make a living out of writing in Nigeria, solely on writing? And if that is possible, how should the person go about it, given your experience in business?
I have to say, how do I put this so that it doesn't come out very okay? So the thing is that sadly a lot of people are not reading, and you can't blame them because you're selling a book for X amount, and somebody says, if I have to buy that book, I have to miss the meal. That's something. So book writing is something that for most people we have to combine with something else. That's the truth. It should be something good side. For now, maybe when we put out the lower avenues I mentioned, once we sort those out, for students in school where it's compulsory that you have to get books, if you can write for a certain market, then it's fine. For technical areas, it's fine. But for general reading, you may want to consider having a certain height in the industry, so that when you write a book, you're not just who wants to make a living out of writing, you're writing as someone who is an expert in an area and speaking from that state of authority. That way your books sell. But to just say I want to rely on books, I have seen in Abuja, and I see that reading culture has slowed down. Between when I'm a member of the Lab, for instance, I started maybe 15 years ago, and now the people who come to the line are mostly those who are preparing for professional exams, not coming to read for just reading. When I was a child, I used to go to your library, but now I passed there and I saw that it's something that a place I wouldn't even want to go to because it just didn't look like the place I used to see as a child. So reading is not one of our biggest problems now. Let's resolve our lower order needs and then we'll move it. But that's not to say people are not making money from books. Like I said, specialized books, targeted audiences. If you do your proper business plan, then you might be able to make a living out of writing books. But honestly, at this minute, I can't say 3 people in this country that I know who like books and depend on only books as their means of livelihood, me included.
Okay, ma'am. Now, apart from books, if someone is listening to you out there and wants to start a business, what are the areas of business that you would like the person to consider right now?
Okay, so it to be where are you located? What do you want to do? I mean, business can be online, offline. The options are really plenty, and it's not something that you can give one general answer to. You also have to be interested. What are the skills you have? What are you bringing to the table? How much money do you want to, or do you have to start a business? What are, for instance, the market has to be there. You cannot start a business because you like the idea. You cannot start a business because you think it will be the best for everybody. You cannot decide for people what they want. You will decide, you will meet the market, not you to tell the market this is what. To build a market is very expensive. So the easiest way to enter a market is to do business is to find out the need, the gap, and then go in. Don't look at a Bible and say we have 9 million people, so I'm going to go and do this. 9 million people. No. Are those people capable? Are they going to provide effective demand? I mean, population is not effective demand. That has very clearly stated. Because you have a large population in school, you might think you can do better, but you haven't done your analysis. See who your specific target market is. If they are capable of buying. Somebody says it's nice, doesn't mean they're going to wear or bring cards when you bring your friends to buy. So that market, you have to know the market. And you have to be sure that your market is for the location. It's the physical thing that you are doing. It has to be for that location. I mean, you can't go and start selling things in a place where the community is in a religion that doesn't eat pork. So you have to do a bit of groundwork before you start on the business, because money now is very scarce and you don't want to waste it on things that you should have done made it. In fact, that's what I said in my first book, Aspire Starting a Successful Business. That make your mistakes on paper, do your business plan, make get counsel from people before you start. That way you make your mistakes on paper.
Yeah. Okay, so that actually, when I read about you, I saw that you have 2 books. So there's one apart from those teenagers. Let's talk about that one first. What was the inspiration behind its writing? As you've just said, perhaps I heard you mention one thing.
That's been a bit upset. I don't know if it's from your side or my side.
So I didn't get you. Okay, so I was saying that you should give us a kind of lowdown on the other book of yours, Aspire Starting a Successful Business. What informed its writing and the impact it has had on the business world?
Okay. All right. So as I told you, I have worked with 24,000 businesses in my interaction as a BDSP at Microfinance Bank. And in the process, I've seen the mistakes people make when they're starting a business. And so that's why I decided to write the book. And I didn't write Aspire do this. I wrote it in the form of a story of incidentally the protagonist is named Alien Etio. And Alien Etio wanted to start a business, but because her father was a businessman, she looked at what her father did and his businesses, and her father's businesses have failed, and so she decided to do things differently, and she sought counsel, and so she had a better business than her father. And the book is, like I said, is a story involving several characters. In fact, in one of the chapters, single young lady, and they had some interactions about funding sources. One of them, they were eyeing each other one time. And so after reading the book, somebody asked me that what happens, did Candy and Ian actually go out after that interaction? I said, I don't know. Maybe you should wait for part 2 of the book.
Wow, that's great. Now, I did a review on those teenage years, but I would like to ask you, what was the inspiration behind the writing of those teenage years?
Okay. So very interestingly, and yes, the idea came to me at breakfast table one Christmas about 2017. This Christmas, my family, my children were in school at the time, all over, and when it's Christmas, everybody comes home, no matter where you are, you have to come to Christmas. So we are all at home for Christmas, and we started breakfast, and usually our family's favorite breakfast is pancakes, and we make pancakes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so my video went off.
Okay, please continue.
Okay, so our favorite breakfast is pancakes. Although we started, we had this breakfast. This breakfast, we started eating at about 10 o'clock. We were on that table till it was lunchtime. Because we were not talking about secondary school, university, my husband, my children, myself. We were just gisting, laughing. It was so much fun. And I said to myself, other families may have this kind of story or not. But if I put this together, it will be a conversation starter. And I haven't been wrong, because this book has told, some people have used it as conversation starters in their family, even among friends. Among the way, somebody called me one day and said to me that, Madam, do you know that you are settling a quarrel now? I said, how? He said that when he read it to that place where something happened in secondary school, I don't want to give out that part, and that he recalled his friend. Meanwhile, this is friend that he was in secondary school with. They had been on speaking terms because of something that happened at some point. But because he remembered their secondary school days and what happened, both of them were involved in, he called his friend and they had this long conversation for over an hour. It was after he called his friend, they had a conversation, and they remembered they had been beating each other, they had been speaking terms. So he now called me to say, madam, we are settling with our master. So those are the kinds of things that I thought those Nigerians will do. Just start conversations, remind people of where they came from, and just make people have a laugh. Because it's already hard enough as it is. People have had a laugh and people have cried. I was on Voice of Nigeria some years ago, and the lady asked a particular question about one of the things I mentioned in the book. And I said, yes, I had to write it because it happened in homes and families and in schools. But people don't talk about it so much. And I even told her that one lady, she lives in Port Harcourt, she read the book and called me that she wanted to pray for that person that this thing happened to. And I said to her, madam, this is a fictionary book. It's not about me or anybody else, it's just a fiction, but I just put together what I have seen in the society. So those are the things that just pushed me to write, but particularly just the bonding tool. Like one of the people who wrote, who said something about the book, said that just maybe the bonding tool, and I totally agree.
Yeah. So has this book been, how do I put it, included in the state curriculum for students, say in secondary school?
Okay, so I was in Abuja, for some resource center. So it's still in the process for that.
Okay, because I thought it would be very good for young persons to read it, especially in the States.
I didn't quite hear what you said.
Yes, because I thought it would be very good for young people to read it, especially in the States, if it has gone into the curriculum. That was why I asked the question. Given that it has mostly characters of young people and their experiences, I thought probably that if it had been approved by the state government, it could serve as a good teaching material for students who need to know how to navigate their life around school.
Yes, in our Bible state, I'm going to start the process of seeing that it gets recommended, get approved for use in secondary school, because quite a few people, in fact, there's a lady who started a group of indigenous authors in our Bible state, and I remember, and her book has been approved, so she told me about it, and I think that this year I'm going to get started with that, and get started with getting the book in our Bible state. Because she was also saying, after the book is written with quite a number of Bible characters, so why are we not using it, like, even if it has gone to certain countries also outside Nigeria?
Yes. So, in writing this book, what vision did you have for how it will affect the lives of young people in society, whether in Nigeria or outside Nigeria?
Okay, so the idea, if I got the question correct, because it was a bit tricky, but the idea was for people to know that their choices have consequences. That's bottom line, really. Everyone's choices they make today have consequences on their life tomorrow.
Okay. One of the strengths of this book is in the area of characterization, and particularly the divide between the rich and the poor are seen at the level of young people, children in school, and there's this particular character who is conscious of her background. That is Edith, I'm sure. who goes to one of the workers to ask questions about how they made their wealth. And I think the answer she got was quite scientific. How would you compare that answer to the dominant narrative today that perhaps when someone is so rich, perhaps they have made money rituals?
Oh no, that when I hear those things, money rituals, I ask them, so who on the list of the richest men in the world, men and women in the world, can attribute their wealth to money rituals? And I don't know any. Everybody that is rich has a very traceable source. So money ritual may not be as effective as it is being claimed. So the list that we see is more scientific and it just dissuades or dislodges the fact that money ritual does it. I personally haven't met anyone who is rich through money rituals, and I've lived with us long enough to have met quite a number of people who are reasonably well off.
Okay, so perhaps we can pause now. I would like you to read a passage from the book that impresses you most, and then after that we'll have some more discussion on the book.
Okay, so let me see. I marked out so many places, but for one of time, I will just I'll reach now several places. Okay, you know what? I'll read chapter 4, some part of chapter 4. Just I know that quite a number of people they'll be reminded of the, if I read out of chapter 4. Chapter 4 says, a reader, a leader. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Hold on. Hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Alright, let me just read about the book, the back of the book. I mean, what this is about. Instead of reading the let me just read about it.
I think we prefer the inside because I've already read some parts of the review to the audience.
Epistolary novel written by Edith according to her daughter, who is 11, teenager in her years. She's already in secondary school. This is like to an old and friend from secondary school, Fatima Akogo, on board a plane to Dubai. It is taken down memory lane, and the choices they made as teenagers and how those choices have